The film begins with a man named Casey Bowman buying a necklace at a jewelry store, which he plans to give to his wife, Namiko. Unbeknownst to Casey, two robbers are tracking him, intending to steal his wallet. The robbers corner Casey in an alley and plan to take his wallet. Not wanting any trouble, Casey hands over his wallet, but the robbers aren't satisfied. They demand the necklace he's holding, which angers Casey. He effortlessly defeats the two men and returns home. Upon arriving home, he presents the necklace to Namiko, who is pregnant with their first child. Namiko is delighted with the gift from her husband. That night, craving chocolate, Namiko asks her husband to buy some immediately. Casey, being an understanding husband, goes to the supermarket to purchase the chocolate. As he is about to pay, he realizes his wallet is missing. He rushes back home. Meanwhile, someone breaks into Namiko's residence, planning to kill her. Upon returning, Casey is horrified to find his wife murdered, with 2 X marks on her neck. On the day of the funeral, Casey's best friend, who is also a student of Master Takeda, named Nakabara, comes to visit him. This man deeply mourns Namiko's death.
I'm very sorry for your loss.
Nakabara then invites Casey to train in a dojo in Thailand to alleviate his pain from losing his beloved wife. However, Casey declines the offer, as he wants to seek revenge on the killer of his wife. Casey suspects that the robbers he confronted after leaving the locksmith might be connected to Namiko's murder. He then goes to a dojo to look for clues. After arriving at the dojo, Casey gets into a fight with several people practicing there. He finally finds the whereabouts of the 2 robbers and relentlessly pursues them. He ambushes and kills them in a dark alley. Without finding any information about his wife's murderer, he decides to follow Nakabara's advice and go to Thailand. Nakabara greets Casey happily upon arrival and introduces him to his students. Casey then temporarily stays at Nakabara's dojo, investigating Namiko's murder case and seeking the mastermind. One day, during an argument with one of Nakabara's students, Lucas, Casey loses his temper and brutally attacks him with a bakken. Nakabara then reminds him to control his emotions and suggests he undergo firewalking training. However, Casey stops midway because the memory of Namiko is still vivid in his mind. To distract himself, he goes to a nearby bar for a drink and ends up fighting with some drunken patrons. The next day, feeling unwell from the previous night's drinking, Casey is about to pick fruit in the garden. Realizing this, Lucas volunteers to take over his duties and asks him to rest. Casey thanks Lucas and immediately returns to his room. He sleeps restlessly, as if his trained instincts are warning him of impending danger. Sure enough, Casey receives news that Lucas was found dead in the garden, killed with the same type of wire net weapon used on Namiko. Casey discusses this with Nakabara, who knows the wire net weapon is very similar to one used by Goro. Nakabara then reveals to Casey that his father, along with Master Takeda and a man named Isamu, were the 3 best students of the Koga dojo. After their teacher's death, Isamu challenged Takeda to rule the dojo. Takeda successfully killed Isamu in the battle and was appointed as the master of the dojo. Isamu's brother, Goro, witnessed the fight and vowed to avenge his brother's death, even if it took 3 generations. Currently, Goro is the leader of one of the largest drug trafficking groups in Myanmar. Nakabara then urges Casey to return to the United States, as being Takeda's son-in-law has made him a target for Goro. Instead, Casey asks Nakabara to help him find Goro, who is so well protected in Myanmar that even the authorities bow to him. Nakabara then gives Casey an old map of Myanmar from World War II that his father had, marked with a location where ninja weapons are buried. After thanking Nakabara, Casey immediately heads to Myanmar, where he meets a very friendly taxi driver named Mike, who drives him to an inn. Casey begins to prepare everything, including various ninja weapons and deadly poisons. That night, with Mike's help, Casey manages to find a bar frequently visited by drug dealers. As he sits alone drinking, a man approaches him and hands him something. Wanting to find information about Goro, Casey follows the man. There, he mentions Goro's name, which makes the man look suspicious and call his friends to join forces against Casey. However, Casey easily defeats them and obtains information about Goro. When he returns to his hotel to rest, police in conspiracy with Goro raid his room, planning to arrest him on charges of being an American spy. Casey tries to escape, but due to the overwhelming number of armed police, he is quickly subdued and taken to prison. In prison, he endures various forms of torture by the police, but then he pretends to be unconscious, making the police stop their torture. As Casey is about to be put into a cell, he wakes up, beats up the police escorting him, and steals their clothes. Now disguised as a police officer, Casey attempts to sneak out of the prison, but before doing so, he manages to get information from a police officer about Goro's whereabouts, who says Goro is hiding in the center of a forest. Once out of prison, Casey again seeks Mike's help, who takes him to the forest where Goro is hiding. Goro's patrol has already been informed of Casey's arrival. Casey then engages them in battle, successfully killing all of Goro's men and taking their weapons. As Casey ventures deeper into the forest, he finally finds the grave of the Japanese soldier referred to by Nakabara. He then arms himself with a box filled with ninja weapons, which is buried under a wooden tombstone marked with the Nakabara clan symbol. After preparing everything, Casey continues his journey and manages to find Goro's hideout. He sneaks into Goro's headquarters and kills Goro's men one by one. Afterward, he blows up the base and confronts Goro's bodyguard and right-hand man, Mayat. A fierce battle ensues between Casey and Mayat. Despite being overwhelmed by Mayat, Casey eventually manages to stab and kill him. Casey then proceeds to Goro's base and fights the old man. He manages to wound Goro, but the old man still stands up. Midway through the fight, Goro wraps a wire net around Casey's neck, but Casey, using all his strength, breaks free, successfully fends off the attack, and then throws Goro to the ground and kills him. In short, Casey has his revenge and then returns to Nakabara's dojo. The man happily welcomes Casey home. While they are chatting, a delivery man comes to see Nakabara. Casey then realizes that the emblem on the delivery man's knife is exactly the same as the one on the emblem of the robbers who had mugged him in Japan. Actually, Nakabara is the murderer of Namiko and Lucas. Nakabara turns out to be a drug dealer who intentionally uses Casey to eliminate the Goro cartel to monopolize the drug trade in Southeast Asia. Nakabara then gives Casey the choice to join him or die. Clearly, Casey does not want to align himself with the murderer of Namiko. The two eventually engaged in a fierce fight until Casey kicked Nakabara through a thin wall, revealing a room filled with ancient artifacts. They continued their gunfight inside the room, where Casey slashed Nakabara in the abdomen, and Nakabara stabbed Casey in the left shoulder with his wakizashi. Nakabara then charged at Casey, but Casey grabbed a wire net and wrapped it around Nakabara's neck, killing him. After Nakabara's death, Casey revealed Nakabara's true motives to a student named Hao at the dojo. Hao opened a package addressed to Nakabara, which contained drugs. Knowing Nakabara's actions would tarnish the dojo's reputation, Hao declared the incident never happened and thanked Casey for uncovering everything. After his revenge, Casey returned to Japan, threw Namiko's necklace into a swimming pool, and ended his ordeal.